As the Kursk offensive progresses, the latest developments do not bode well for Russian troops cut off south of a key waterway. I'm former SEAL Team 6 Squadron leader Chuck Pfarrer, and this is the Kyiv Post's Point of Impact. Kyiv's surprise offensive against Kursk continues to gain ground and now controls approximately 1,100 square kilometers of Russian territory. Ukraine has used deeply inserted special forces, long-range guided missiles, airstrikes, and FPV drones to attack Russian nodes of command and control, convoys, logistical formations, and transportation infrastructure. As we will see, Ukraine is likely to increase the territory under its control. West of the salient controlled by Ukrainian forces, the Seym River is a tree-lined waterway meandering west to east. The river is sufficiently broad and deep to make fording or wading across it impossible. The terrain around the river is generally impassable for wheeled or tracked vehicles, making it a formidable barrier for ground-based military operations. Between the Seym and the Ukrainian frontier to the south is a 430 square kilometer swath of terrain, approximately the size of the country of Luxembourg. It's not clear how many Russian troops were deployed into this area, but with a difficult-to-cross river at their backs, their probable fate is more certain than their location. Information varies as to the composition of Russian forces, but they're thought to include small sub-elements of the Russian 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, as well as parts of the 64th and 38th Separate Motor Rifle Brigades. All are known to be operational in Kursk Oblast. Well, it turns out that the Russian troops deployed south of the river have Achilles' heels, 3 of them, in the form of 3 bridges that were necessary for their logistical needs. You'll notice I said were necessary, not are. From west to east, the spans were located at Kyiv, Zevnoye, and Glushkovo. These were the only crossing points linking the swath of territory to the south. While Ukrainian forces continued operations to the east, Ukrainian HIMARS batteries interdicted the bridge near the village of Glushkovo. U.S.-manufactured M30 missiles punched at least 4 holes in the bridge's reinforced concrete road deck, damaging it significantly. On the 16th of August, a Ukrainian airstrike dropped a precision munition on the bridge at Zevnoye, 5.5 kilometers east of Kyiv, punching a 2-meter hole in the pavement, rendering the bridge impassable. Kyiv Post geolocation researchers confirmed these images. Also, on 16 August, a second Ukrainian airstrike took out the previously damaged bridge at Glushkovo, dropping the span into the river. Russian commanders, belatedly recognizing the peril of their forces south of the river, tried to emplace pontoon bridges between Zevnoye and Glushkovo. Ukrainian forces also attacked these locations. Satellite images of the area show that these floatable spans are no longer in place. Video also showed Ukrainian strikes using cluster munitions to destroy engineering vehicles and floating spans on the river. The last bridge to be struck was in the vicinity of Kyiv on the 19th of August. It was destroyed outright, also by a Ukrainian airstrike. The destruction of the 3 bridges cut off 80 Russian villages, without road access to points north or east. It was no longer impossible for Russian reinforcements, supply, fuel, or ammunition to head south, or for these trapped Russian units to move north. Sources report that Russian civilians and troops have recently attempted to cross the river in small boats. We're going to honor President Zelensky's request to maintain operational security on pending Ukrainian operations north of the border. But what can we surmise about the conditions and operational contingencies of Russian troops operating in Kursk? Well, it turns out we can know a lot. Our Kyiv Post colleague Jason Smart was one of the first accredited journalists to travel to Sudza, where he was able to report firsthand from the zero line inside Russia. Speaking to members of a Ukrainian mechanized infantry outfit, Jason was told that combat was in progress to the west of the town of Korenovo, and that mainline formations of the Ukrainian armed forces were in contact at points more than 40 kilometers north of the Ukrainian frontier. Combat was also going on to the east and southeast of Sudza. Ukrainian troops told Jason that Russian resistance overall in the Kursk region was still disorganized and limited. One Ukrainian commander stated that in 2 weeks of combat, his unit had, quote, yet to encounter any really well-organized Russian defenses. While Ukrainian operations continue, intelligence officials have debriefed many of the hundreds of Russian prisoners of war captured in Kursk. The prisoners tell of facing ground maneuver elements of Ukrainian forces that were well supported by artillery and wave attacks of Ukrainian FPV drones. A number of Russian POWs also reported that in the early hours of Ukrainian attacks, many Russian company and field-grade officers, as well as NCOs, abandoned their lower-ranking troops, leaving them without intelligence or operational orders. These units, who were often quickly encircled by fast-moving Ukrainian forces, had little option but to surrender. Many of them have been filmed waving white flags at hovering Ukrainian drones. Needless to say, morale among the rank and file of Russian units is abysmal. As previously discussed, Ukrainian strike fighters have been active over Kursk, destroying bridges and high-priority targets at will. From these strikes, the conclusion can be drawn that Ukraine has been able to inflect the air defense environment in Kursk. This is likely through the combination of electronic warfare applications, suppression of enemy air defense missions flown by Ukrainian aircraft, and the targeting of Russian air defense sites by Ukrainian special forces and FPV drone operations. All of these factors taken together have created a permissible air environment for Ukrainian fixed-wing and rotary-wing operations. This also indicates the presence of mobile Ukrainian air defense deployed north of the Russian frontier. Ukraine's Kursk offensive has succeeded because Ukraine scrupulously created the preconditions necessary for success. Surprise, mass, and unity of command permitted Ukraine to unleash a surprise attack, strike and advance, and capitalize on the disorganized and slow reaction of Russian forces. With localized air defense dominance, Ukraine ground maneuver elements are protected from air attack. We're now more than 2 weeks into Kyiv's surprise offensive, and Ukraine still controls the tempo of battle, dictating the time and place of combat to Russian forces. It can be expected that Ukraine will soon address the Russian forces cut off south of the Seym River. When that attack will take place, only Ukrainian commanders know. I'm Navy SEAL Chuck Pfarrer, and I'm going to see you again at the point of impact.